Welcome to another episode of The Local Dive. This is Alex Scott, joined by Ashlyn Portero.
Hello.
Dean and Sarah.
Hey, hey.
You already cracked the top.
I was thirsty.
I
was thirsty, sorry.
And producer Jacob, how's it going?
Good.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah, good to be back after not being on last
I
week.
was going to say a week off, but we're excited to jump into another episode where in the deep dive, we'll be talking all about embracing your church's vision. And so how do you do that? Where are the things maybe that you could helpfully push back on? What are things you should just maybe suck it up and embrace it? But before we do that, not Local on Tap, that's coming later. Shallow End. If we were really self-centered and it was all about us, how would your selfish vision for the church be shaped? Like, what are the things that if you could just BK the church and have it your way?
Oh boy.
what would be your vision for the church?
I would have church be at like 3:00 on Sunday afternoon.
You have always been consistent on that.
I just think an
This is
afternoon
true.
time, it just could be. I'm not saying that other services can't happen around it. Just my selfish, self-centered time would be.
It would be very selfish because you'd be the only one there. Like there's no one else joining you.
Church with myself.
Or maybe there's like
Just
3
not a
people.
thing.
But I would change every coffee bar in churches to just serve Diet Coke. Or if we like,
yeah, I'd be a fan of that.
yeah, I mean, or if we like wanted to, you regular Coke people could have a fountain too.
Gosh,
but
I love a regular Coke. I wish it was nutritious. Oh my gosh.
hey, it's like 85% water.
There you go.
I mean, it is. That's what I think. Looking at a Diet Coke can right now, first thing listed, carbonated water.
Let's go.
That means there's more
basically
water
a
than
LaCroix.
anything else.
Oh,
Yes.
whoa.
Yeah, except it tastes better.
True.
So I would have MLB Network playing on every TV in the building
Oh, good call.
rather than TVs just being used for like announcements or whatever. And I would also I'd clear some land, more land, and would have the most perfectly kept, like manicured. I wouldn't know how to do that, but pay somebody nice to do it. Baseball field, where like we could just go out and throw whenever we wanted, hit, have games, like
A little midday BP.
and not like softball league. Like it's just like our field, like for us to go midday BP and throw.
It's not
like church
city,
members.
not city of Tallahassee.
No,
like,
we're not even trying to do outreach, nothing like that. It's just like our field.
it's just for us.
Yeah, I'm not
No
trying to have like
emotional
upward. I'm not trying to have like upward T-ball or anything like that. It's just straight up BK, have it my way, whatever it was.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I want to, but I want it to be nice. I want like Field of Dreams field.
Would you want actual grass?
Oh yeah,
Okay, I didn't.
Yeah.
Less maintenance with turf.
yeah. But hey, as long as we get a good field guy, we're fine.
I also this is just because it annoys me, but I would make it to where like every phone automatically not turns off, but it like goes silent, like it like cannot play noise, because for whatever reason the person whose phone goes off in the middle of church, they can never find it and they can never figure out how to make it quiet.
Ever.
Like, it's never like a quick ring, hit it in the pocket and it goes off.
There's been Sundays where people have like answered their phone in the service. You
Oh
ever
my
see it?
gosh.
Where this person's like, "Hello, hey, I'm in church like really loud. I'm in church right now. Can't talk." It's like, dude.
Call you later.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the person who like accidentally hits play on the Bible app and it's like, starts reading, 1 Corinthians 15 and it starts reading it or whatever, and they're like embarrassingly running out the back of the church. So just all of that just turns off.
I also think it'd be cool to signal Leon alma mater as the benediction.
Oh, mercy.
Okay. No, we don't go to the same church then. So.
Well, you're by yourself at 3, so you're good.
That's right. We don't sing it there.
Any other?
I'm trying to think about anything else. I would have we'd have an awesome church library where I would control
Oh yeah.
all of the orders, and I would get some legit stuff, but
But
I would also
But I'd also get some non-legit
no,
stuff.
that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I could set the environment. It would be a place where people would hang out.
Okay,
Awesome.
what is
It'd be
I
great.
would love that actually.
what is the vibe of the Portero Church Library?
Ooh, that's a good question. Oh man, I have to think about this. I feel like it would be like a cross between I'm trying to think about I would want it to be like comfortable, but not like too trendy, but not like old, like smell like mothballs church library. So like some kind of like updated version of like a great hall at like a university or something like that. A common room from Harry Potter, if you watch, is what I'm trying
Never
to say.
seen it.
So like dark mahogany bookcases,
But like
leather.
some good natural light coming in. But yes, some good bookcases, some leather chairs. But then maybe like in a corner we could have like the cool trendy like coffee bar area where it's like, okay, you still, you get your Wi-Fi. Oh, but then that's a good idea. Then this is what I would probably do, which just I would struggle with myself too. I don't think we could even run our services this way, but if you walked in and like you had there was no internet, like you couldn't use anything on your phone, like there was no distractions. It was like an unplugged setting.
Question, and I'm gonna get to Jacob's list because I have one for him that I heard they told me earlier. But before that, I don't want to leave him out because he did pull me aside and let me know his list. How important, I don't mean a university setting library where you're researching and studying, but for a regular library, is being quiet really that important? Because it's such a known, like every kid and person knows in the library you be quiet, right? It's kind of like a thing.
Yeah.
Is that important to you? Like
To me personally?
Yeah. I don't mean
Yes.
I don't mean research library, but like so is it a book?
Oh, like in the public library downtown?
Yes.
I mean, I don't think that you need, you can't speak there. I would be very annoyed with someone who was talking loud on their phone or doing we've talked about this before, playing videos loudly. So yes, I think a general quiet level of respect is nice. But I mean, even I think about the FSU library at the bottom floor, it was Club Strozier is what they called it. And then the higher you got, the quieter it got. And so.
Yeah, floor 5, it was you and 3 other people maybe.
Yeah.
And the lights would turn off sometimes because the motion detectors
Yeah.
or whatever not working.
But I mean, a community library, it's you've got, kids are there and they're picking out books and they're running around. I think there should still be that community feel to it. And that's why they have reading rooms.
Oh, true.
Which
Okay.
we could do a whole episode about
yeah,
libraries.
because do you really need to be quiet if you're picking out a trashy romance novel? Not that you pick out trashy romance novels.
It's Alex just constantly
but-
sets me up to be a
No, I
shallow
wasn't saying
human
you.
being.
I wasn't saying you. I just meant you as in a generic. I'm thinking of a 60-year-old woman who's trying to find
Pat Scott, let's go.
I don't think she reads that, but I hope not. But I'm just really do you need it to be that quiet?
No, you don't.
Jacob told me that he would like 2 things. One is very predictable. It's a dumbbell station where there's just barbells and things like that available. And we knew that. And the second one is a hair grooming area where you can just go sit down, get a quick do done, and hit the road back to your workout.
Get a quick do done.
and he wants more mirrors.
Yeah. Look, I'm not gonna lie. Both of those things would be really convenient.
I'm gonna stand with you on that because as someone who is regularly, and Jacob can attest to this, late for run through when I'm doing announcements, there have been a number of times where I've thought maybe I will half get ready and bring my stuff and get ready in the bathroom at church. So if we wanted to vamp up the bathroom scenario, I'd be okay with that too.
I would take a barber chair for a straight a straight razor shave, and I mean I think I could handle that.
Additional opportunity.
Jacob, do you have any real ones?
The only one I thought of other than those 2 were a fellowship hall that set up a cafeteria with a permanent Chick-fil-A, a permanent Lucky Go.
Oh, strong.
Nice.
Come on.
The
what have we been doing?
Yeah, I was a food court. Sweet.
Yeah.
I'm can we have the MLB network on the TV? The guy just brought in Ruth Chris into our lobby.
Jacob is
Yeah, but
thinking
the only
ahead.
problem is the day that we're most busy, Chick-fil-A's closed.
That's true.
But I mean, it'd still be great
But
during the
it's
week.
Jacob's church, so they can be open that day.
You think Steve Elliott, one of our elders, would be open to having Chick-fil-A in the lobby that he was the owner operator of? Let's check on that.
I don't know.
We have that on the agenda for the next elders meeting.
Steve, let us know.
Item 6.
That's a solid. Any other Chick-fil-A Lucky Goat anywhere else or any other restaurants?
I mean,
Cooler with Food Glorious food dessert would be.
I was gonna say some things that aren't chains would be really good. But
I went to Fig Glorious Food last night, and the 2 desserts I ordered, one at a time, they did not have. So I was like, can I have the vanilla caramel cake, which is new? And they were like, oh, we're like, sure. And they come back and like, sorry to break this to you, we're out of that. I was like, okay, fine.
Hudson
Can
Valley
I have the
apple
key
cake?
lime pie pound cake? They're like, yes. They come back 2 minutes later and go,
No.
we're sorry, sir, we're out of that. I was like,
On
what?
a Wednesday?
Yeah, on a Wednesday. So I wound up getting Hudson Valley. But like, I was like, I should have this for free. If it's 0 for 2, I should have got this in the house. But that's all right.
Got to be quicker than that.
I know.
All right. Well, I guess that's enough about us and our selfish desire for what we want the church to be. And we'll dive into the deep dive where we are going to be talking about embracing your church's vision and what it really, I think, means and looks like to buy into the vision that your church is trying to push forward. And the first question, like, what does that mean? What does it mean to embrace your church's vision? And then maybe on the flip side, what are examples, maybe not literal examples, but of people who haven't done that?
Well, I can think of something in the early days that probably for a new church that is doing church in a different way from other churches, maybe in the city, that I feel like was distinct about our church is that we talked a lot about, I mean, we still do this, but talking about this being, as you're trying to shape the church in the early days, like we talked a lot about, people being in the city, like invested in, so you're doing, your kids are doing sports, in city leagues, you're invested in things that are already happening. We talked about that a lot. Maybe you're joining like the Chamber of Commerce and you're just kind of being present in the things that are already a part of the life of the city. That's like one practical outworking of a larger vision to meet people where they're at and to be a church that is known in the city for being for the city, but that is distinct, from the worldly ways of the city. And so I think that's, to me, that would be a way of embracing your church's vision is maybe if you were hearing that and that was something new to you, that you, instead of saying, well, here's what I think the church is supposed to do for me, or maybe saying, that's a different vision. I've never thought about that before. A way to embrace that would be to really, I think, as a church member, think through that, listen to the teaching, from the pastor and from the leadership of the church, and like truly listen and pay attention to like what kind of vision am I catching and what's being communicated, and then how do I actually embrace that, meaning I welcome it, I agree with it, I support it, I submit to it. And then I sort of start to arrange my life in such a way that, I'm reflecting the vision of the church that I'm a member of.
I love that arrange my life around that's just that to me, that's the New Testament church, right? That's the book of Acts and maybe a little bit of a lost understanding in today's church culture where church can kind of be an add-on or just something I go to on Sundays, something along those lines. We had a church member recently in a testimony to say that, here's an example of that. Their second highest expense as a family is the income, is their money that goes to their church. Mm-hmm. Their second highest expense is their giving to their church. Like that looks like, right? Or really just making it where you are living in response. See, we live as, so I mean, we kind of rephrase this. So our lives as Christians, like how we live for Christ in the New Testament is done in the context of the church. Like they're not separate categories. So like even though I'm actually living for Jesus, not living for the church in my daily life, I'm living for Jesus as an outworking of my church, like as a product, as a member, as someone carrying the torch for it. So I think another thing is that people also have to be willing to kind of adjust to things. So Ashwin talked about being for the city. Like when someone thinks for the city, they might think we mean a lot of programs, like a lot of social programs and a lot of activities and and we don't do a lot of those because we rather want people to be just a part of normal Tallahassee life. And as members of the church, to go and just be, I know saying be present sounds a little cliche nowadays, but just be a part of normal Tallahassee life. See needs, meet them. What are you passionate about? Go do it. What excites you? Join it. Those type of ideas.
Yeah, join life where it's already happening, not necessarily having to create an alternative whatever is happening in the city,
which is an adjustment for some people where church has always been like on Tuesday night we do this and then we're going to go here and everybody sign up for next Wednesday we're going to do that's not bad, but that's just right. We just want to see more lifestyle than just simply events.
One of the things that, Dean, I remember you saying early on that kind of stuck with me is, like people would come to the church and even this still happens. And it's like, what are you doing for fill in some marginalized community, right? Like, what are you doing for the poor? What are you doing for the orphan? And oftentimes like they were looking for a response of, we have this program or that program, or we do a food pantry on the first Saturday of every month. And being able to flip that and say, no, like, well, what are you doing as a church member for that marginalized community? I think like that was something that just made me realize like, oh yeah, you don't actually need the church's permission to do those things, but you can come alongside of, Second Harvest or something like that to feed the poor. And as a member of City Church, be actively involved in that. One of the other things too that comes to mind, especially I think part of this is just coming off of the Easter weekend, but like, and Ashlyn, this goes with what you were saying about rearranging your life. Like one of the things early on when we were at church, when we would do Easter at the Moon, you would make a big push for college students to stay in town and not go home for, like Easter with mom at home church.
That was crucial for us.
Yeah, and I was gonna say it carried momentum, and I think those are the kinds of things where you say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna rearrange the fact that like my holiday schedule, would be this, but because my church, this is a huge weekend for my church. It doesn't always have to be Easter, but like whatever, depending on the church, like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna rearrange. I think of people who gave and who give like a week of vacation basically, or half a week of vacation to be at our kids camp in the summer, and they take off time to say, they're literally rearranging their lives using free time or using, like work time to come in and, sacrifice their schedule and their time for the sake of seeing the vision of the church move forward. And so those are I think just tangible ways where we've really seen that played out in our church.
Something that I think is also important to remember when we talk about vision, because vision can kind of be like a buzzword and a broad idea. But I think embracing your church's vision has a lot to do with possibility and with what could be and with what you see. And so I think as a church member, embracing the vision of your church. So like at City Church, when we say, we want to be a church that's for the gospel and for the city, we want to see people living on mission. We want to see people connected to the church. We want to see people equipped and discipled and then go out and live missional lives for the sake of the gospel. So that, Lord willing, we would see transformation in our city. We would start to see our city, changed and transformed to look a little more like the kingdom of God. And obviously like the Lord is at work in all of that. We're just called to be faithful. But I think there's also something, to, when you embrace the vision, you start to see that possibility. Like you start to believe, okay, when I first think about Tallahassee, I'm not going to think about, and I know we like joke on the podcast and stuff like, what are the restaurants that I like, or what do I wish we had, or things like that. But that my first like true thoughts when I think about, the life of Tallahassee, as a city, that I'm not first thinking about like, what do I get out of living here, but what could be by God's people living together in a gospel-centered culture for the good and the sake of others. Like that's a totally different way of seeing than, what do I get out of my city? And even when we talk about, Tallahassee is a great place to live, and it is, but most of what we talk about is like how the city serves the people, and people have invested their lives to build up the city in a lot of ways, but even seeing beyond that with an eternal perspective, of like the work that we do here in our city as Christians, like that's going to bleed over in some sense into the new creation. And so I think like embracing the vision is also starting to see with eyes that see the possibility of what could be if the Lord truly transforms the city, awesome. for his glory. So I think that starts to shift like what your eyes actually see.
I love that. I want you to write that book. That's spot on. I mean, yeah, like let's dream for that, right? I mean, like and actively dream, for that. And it takes people being on board fully, for that to be carried out. Like I don't want to go pastor a church where that's not a possibility. Mm-hmm. People don't want to think that way, and so. Like I don't get up in the morning just wanting to be a chaplain. I mean, like let's go, right? And I think that's important for a church, because how seldom is church choosing, as in picking the church for you or being a part of a church, have anything to do with vision? Normally for a lot of people, and I never thought about vision growing up about church. It was just like, what's close to it? Different. Where do I go? Where are my friends? where do my parents go now that I'm an adult? Where's grandma and grandpa? Where do, what music do I like? What preacher do I like? That kind of thing. Rarely is it like, man, I just am all about what they want to see. Like, I want to be a part of that church. What those people, not the staff, the people, want to see happen in this community. That's just rare nowadays. I want to be part of Vision, not just a guy that's a really good Bible teacher or music that's really inspiring, or even a kids program that's dynamic. Like, who do they want to be and what do they want to see happen through this church?
And that's such a good reminder too, that because yes, the church is the people, and it can be humbling too when, thinking from a staff member, ministry, leadership position. That can be a lay leader too, an elder, deacon, whoever. But sometimes you need reminding from other people, like what your church's vision is. And so, when day to day kind of, a lot of our jobs is like, kind of stewarding the different aspects of the life of our church. And so, when people come and inevitably bring ideas and things they want to do, like sometimes, to your point, Alex, we say, we bless that, affirm that, but you go off and, you do it, or you lead the way. It might not be a formal ministry of the church in like a program sense, but it's a ministry, through you as a church member. But other times, people might bring things, and sometimes the tendency, could be, oh, we can't take on one more thing, or how does that really fit, whatever. But it sometimes is a good reminder too, because most of the time, giving the benefit of the doubt, like people, I'm kind of going off on, a tangent here, but people, when people have embraced the vision, they're going to come with more ideas, and they're going to come and say, hey, here's what could be for this group in our city, or here's what could be for, or I have a vision that, that in my mind is for the gospel and for the city in this way. And so there's also a stewardship ministry aspect too, of how do we help steer people. And a lot of times it doesn't need to be, come to the church, get approval, or, or whatever. So sometimes a staff member's role is kind of guiding people along and just sending them back out to do whatever it is that they wanted to do. But I've been reminded from time to time, man, this person is coming because they have caught the vision, and in their mind, they're seeing something that I don't see, like that my eyes don't see day to day, or I'm not thinking about. But how can we, kind of fuel their fire to go and be an expression of for the gospel, for the city, like where they are. And so I think it's very humbling and helpful perspective too, that people have caught the vision when people are coming with ideas that it's like, I didn't sit around thinking of that like you did, and we're all in this as a church family together, and you need the whole body. So it's very encouraging in that way too.
Yeah, and I think that's dead on. Dean, you talked about this a little bit, and Ashlyn, I think this even ties into what you were just saying, but so much of kind of choosing a church is based on preference, right? Like, it's this band or this speaker or pastor, like, I like this program, whatever. And it's not, as you said, Ashlyn, like hearing what's communicated, kind of catching that vision, and then, kind of picking up and rearranging your life around that. Where is preference okay as we think about kind of church and, embracing like our church and their vision, and where do we just need to stop being so dang selfish?
Yeah, I'm probably not going to get excited about a vision of a church that I don't really like. Like the vision, like the church, like if I just like do not agree or connect with the preaching at all, or the music's just something that's totally something I just can't, that'd be hard to get behind something. So there's preferences that are good in terms of this is something I believe in and could get behind. So I think that's real. That's real life. We're humans, right? And it's just practical. But I think it has to be more than that to decide a church. So where I would hate that if someone, hate's probably a strong word, that would be unfortunate if someone like theologically checked in with the church. It was like, man, these guys are serious about this, and they believed in the reach they were having. Maybe even they were seeing people come into the Lord and in the next generation present, and like youth in the building and people getting saved. And all of a sudden they're like, well, I just don't really like the music. I just prefer something more traditional, or vice versa. Like, I just don't like the music. I wish the band was just, I wish we had a band instead of an organ or whatever. When they saw that church reaching people and extra, I'm just like, you're completely missing the point, right? So I think when it's just so culturally selfish, like simply style, more than is anything else. So I would say if the theology is there and the reach is there, like the legit disciple making is taking place, mission is happening, then like the cultural stuff, man, like don't let that get in the way. Like what's getting in the way of me being a part of this? Is it simply selfish desires, or is it actual like philosophical vision issues or theological issues or those type of things?
I would say an example that comes to my mind for me. So when I started coming to City Church and it was like 2.5 years old, one of the biggest or one of the primary ways to serve was through the volunteering at God Be concession stands, which is, and that may have got, I don't remember exactly when that got started, but I think it was around the
Pretty
time I
early
was
on.
there. I think it was already active. Like me, my personal preferences, if I wasn't, if that opportunity wasn't presented to me, on a list of like 10 ways that Ashland's plan of how to get more involved in the city, volunteering at high school football game concession stands, like there's no way it would make the list. Like that's not something I would ever desire to do outside of dance team in high school. I didn't really care about going to football games. Like that just, especially at a school I didn't go to and, whatever. So, but that was what the church did. And because that was part of our, strategy at the time and still is to be for the gospel and for the city and to serve, a local school and on and on and on. And we can talk, about all the reasons we do that. But so I did that, and it was a great way I got to know people that I still am friends with in this church. I immediately felt more a part of things because I was serving in a way that, a lot of people came to it. We talked about it at church. We celebrated it. It was tied into the whole vision to be for the gospel and for the city and to be a church that's for Tallahassee and known in Tallahassee and and builds relationships. And so that to me is just an example that comes to mind of like my personal preference would not be to go spend a Friday night when I'm 21 for 4 hours at a high school football game that like has no personal attachment to me. But through doing that, I learned, wow, how amazing is it when you're invested in local schools and when you build relationships with people that otherwise you would have never known. And then you're serving alongside church members, and life's not about you in those 4 hours, And so that was just an incredible, teaching, opportunity for me, but also a great way to feel more connected to the church in a way that I would have never like preferred or asked for or self-selected into, except that was what the church did. And then I started to see how it was tied into the overarching vision of our church. And so, that's not a corporate worship example, but I think those are the kinds of things when you talk about preference, that if you come into a church and it doesn't look exactly like how you would design it and the things that you personally would set up, you still need to entrust yourself to those things because, the Lord may actually open up, things in you that, and then later through that, like I got to see church members who took that on and who coordinated it and, I got to, help in that. And so I just think you have to be open-minded because sometimes we act like we know every single thing about ourselves and what's best for us, and that's just not true. And so, there's like an open-mindedness and a sort of like Dean said, there have to be certain foundational things that are there. You want to be going to a church that is a good gospel-centered church, but beyond that, there's a lot you can learn from trying new things. So,
no, I love that. And so for us, I think one of the neat things we've seen over the years is people, not by it happens every, I'm saying several times a year, someone will let me know that like how we, like our church, like just basically let's say Sundays is not really their cup of tea, but they love it because of what they're seeing happen.
Yeah.
Seeing young people in the building, seeing their own adult son come back to church for the first time since he was 18. Things like that. And I love, that's vision.
Yeah.
Like I love that. And that's so, but they'll even tell me like, I'm not really into the, I wish you'd wear a suit, or, I wish I wish the band wasn't so loud, and I wish we did more of this, and I miss having a Sunday school class. Like all these things are good things, nothing wrong with them. But like they, but I love it. I'm here because of what I see. I want my life, my resources, my prayers, my involvement to go here.
Yeah.
That always just, I love it. That's one of my favorite things.
Well, and I think, really, in some ways, I think you can make the argument that those people are, like, as you said, Dean, they've caught the vision of the church, and they're dying to their preferences, because their preference would be, okay, I'd prefer an organ and a choir, or I'd prefer a Sunday school class as opposed to going to somebody else's house in the middle of the week. But like, I'm in, and so I'm just going to embrace this. And instead of pushing back and trying to make this church into something it's not, I'm going to, just say, hey, we're going to go all in with this, even though I wouldn't do it this way. I think, they're just kind of, again, dying to self for the sake of mission. I think if we can do that collectively, Ashlyn, to your point, like we would actually see city transformation where we kind of lay some of our preferences aside for the sake of, moving forward in that same kind of train of thought. Are there things that you can be on board with a church, and are there parts of the vision that you can not embrace?
Sure. I think sometimes how it's carried out, you might just not think it's the best idea, or that your idea is better, or or they are gonna kind of learn from their mistakes kind of thing. I don't think theology is for sale. And I don't mean like third tier issues, like things of major importance. I mean, that's a big deal if you differ there. But so for us, it's always been like, I remember James Parsons famously said for our first year at Godby, he said, this is our vision, and if you don't like it, there's a door with your name on it, as in see ya. So the vision here has never been for sale. How it's done is always up for auction. It's always, always, it's, but who we are and what we're about. And I think it took a little while to get comfortable in that skin, because early on too, when we first started, we almost had to almost distinguish ourselves. Why? This is before church planting was really a thing. So there weren't all the little churches that have popped up since we started. I don't mean little, like other churches. I mean, so I didn't mean to say it like that. Sorry, that's not what I meant behind the tone there. But so we almost had to I don't know who. It was probably more of an internal thing. We almost had to prove why we needed another church in Tallahassee, because that was just church planting was not happening in our city at the time. Mm-hmm. So we really had to kind of distinguish ourselves, and that vision to this day has never been hijacked by someone that had more money or somebody that had a preference. How we do it, to me, is always up for debate. So I also think that if you're a church member, as long as the why is in place, but the how, it should always be able to be negotiable and held loosely, so that's kind of my answer to that.
So how do you kind of let your church be who they are, and while maybe, rightly pushing, we'll just use music style. I feel like that's a relatively easy example. Let's say you go to a church, they're reaching a ton of people, but they have a very traditional service approach, but lots of people are coming, you're seeing disciples made, people are coming to the Lord, there's multi-generational, everything that we've laid out kind of previously is happening. But you think, hey, we could be this would pour gasoline on the fire if we had a different music style, or if we approached this ministry in a different way, or whatever. What's the balance between, hey, you know what, this is my church and it's who they are, and I'm just going to let them be who they are, versus I don't want to say trying to make them be another church, but to your point of certain methods maybe being up for auction, where, as a church member, how do you maybe help steer and shift some of those things and think about that?
Well, I won't even get into the examples, but I think it's important and good to ask questions of why do we do the things that we do. I think so often it's easy to come to church and just sort of participate, you just sort of get what you get, but you don't ever think, I wonder why we sing the songs that we sing, or why we structure our, why we say the things from stage that we say, or why do we pray every service, or, kind of asking different questions. Why does our kids ministry work the way that it does? So I would just say that in and of itself would be a good starting point, is before coming in and saying, hey, I've thought about it, and I really think what we should do, is X, Y, and Z. I think first asking questions, because one, on one hand, it will probably give you some more clarity and understanding about how the leadership of the church thinks, and why certain things are done the way that they are, that might be tied to ecclesiology, might be just tied to, this is the identity of our church, and these are lesser tier things that are just how we happen to express things here. Or it might be helpful to some of the people that you ask the questions to say, we've been doing this thing for 5 years. I don't really know why this class operates the way that it does anymore. We might need to rethink, some things that might be more helpful. I feel like we've done that with different things as well. So that could be a much longer answer, but I will just say I think it's good to start with asking questions and seeking understanding.
Yeah, and for those in church leadership, I think that, especially for pastors, like you've got to be able to have a little bit of courage in your leadership. You know, I think sometimes this is how things are, this is what I inherited, can become too long of an excuse. You don't want to come in blazing saddles who never actually get a chance to accomplish that vision, that whatever you believe it needs to happen through the local church. But you got to have people around you. I really recommend having elders who can get on board, be excited about it. But I think it really just needs to be something that you're not afraid. As Ashlyn first hinted at the very beginning, we talked about at the beginning about that, like what could be, and just draw that picture over and over again, and then lead people to that picture. You know, here's the thing, like it was so clear what we wanted to establish in Tallahassee early on. We wanted to be a church that basically was reaching out without selling out. That was very theologically serious, gospel-centered, theologically conservative, Bible-believing people, and not bud. And because of that, wanted to be around lost people and in lost people's lives and making the gospel known, and create a church from the gathering standpoint that would be one we'd actually want to attend if we didn't work at. That was good. People would be excited to bring their friends to. Because I always believe and still believe you're not going to bring your friend to a church service that you secretly wish you didn't have to go to yourselves. I didn't want to have a church like that. People had to give a disclaimer on the way to church and an apology on the way home every time. That exists a lot. I mean, there's people that go to churches right now and they love their church, love their pastor, believe good things, all that kind of stuff, but they don't bring anybody to church there because they're not really thrilled about it themselves. It's just all they know, they're comfortable there, whatever it might be. So those are the things early on that were like, now how that plays out is up for a lot of debate, but what it wanted to be was crystal clear. And that has not changed an inch for what we're about. How we do things has changed all the time. We have different people come in on staff that help us influence and think about things, about what we need to include and take out and all that kind of stuff over the years. But I think that you have to paint some kind of picture and be willing to push people to it. And that comes through asking questions, painting the picture. But you've got to be able to go, hey, not just, hey, let's survive and make sure that you like the sermon and we have 4 songs picked out, but let's go here. Let's either send missionaries, plant churches. Let's be this in our city. And sometimes it's not going to be as measurable as you'd like it to be. It's more of just a full kind of immersion into the life of this church and the life of the city. And one of my kind of dreams for Tallahassee in our church was always been that one day, if you think of Tallahassee, you don't just think state government and Florida State football. You think of city church as well. And for a lot of ministry leaders outside of Tallahassee, that's actually true. When they think of Tallahassee, they do think of us, which is really neat. I'm really grateful for that. When they hear the name Tallahassee or see a Florida State game on TV, whatever it might be. But the day will come when we hope that our church is such an integral part of the lives that people hear. Because that's going to be true, then it's going to be because of the gospel. That's what we're going to preach, right? Not for our name, but for Jesus' name. And it's been pretty cool to watch some of that stuff start to, we go to the Civic Center for Easter, and we, Ashlyn's on the board of the young direct. I just messed it up.
Not anymore.
Oh, former board member of Access of the young.
Still involved, but not a board member.
Of young professionals at Chamber of Commerce, right? I mean, we have people everywhere, coaching football, teaching classes, and working for the governor. I mean, just goes doctors. I mean, all over the place, and Florida State athletes, coaches. I mean, so. That's kind of the dream, is to be so for the gospel for the city. We're immersed in all Tallahassee life with a message of who Jesus is and what he's done.
Yeah, that's good. I think, one of the things as we think about, I know there are church leaders who listen to this, and one of the things, Ashlyn, that you said early on, as people come in, that they've got to be able to kind of listen, hear what's being communicated, and catch the vision. What thoughts do you all have on ways for church leaders? And you said just eventually you've got to paint the picture for what could be. What are ways that churches and church leaders and even lay members can help, with, if that's with friends or other people attending their church, help communicate, cast, that vision for what could be, and really multiply the way that we communicate the church's vision? And then sort of part B of that question is, how do you know it's working?
Well, I would say this is going to sound so duh, but I truly think you have to really believe it and embody the vision that you're casting. So I cannot imagine
That's important.
how exhausting it is or would be to try to cast a vision that like deep down you're like, I'm not excited about this when I think about it. You know, I would rather someone say, I don't know why this popped into my head. This is like so niche, but I always think about like, because there are so many like hospitality workers in our city and you see the things everywhere where it's like Monday nights, hospitality nights is like the one night that like restaurants are closed or it's not the weekend or the rush or whatever. I'm like, if what excites you is like, there's a lot of lost people in the hospitality industry in our city, I'm going to start a church that meets on Monday nights. You know, I'm like, rock on. And if that's you
Let's go.
and however many other people, like something like that, as opposed to, I want to start a church and I feel like I got to be a big church person and I look at all the church planting industry that there is now and all the resources and I'm going to start a church and da-da-da. Like, as opposed to like trying to be, you know, take on this identity or whatever, just to say, here's who I am. Dean, you're great at saying like, I'm a local Tallahassee guy. These are the type of people that I'm connected to. Doesn't mean that these are the only type of people that are going to be in my church, but I'm going to, start with a vision to reach these people and it's going to trickle out from there. I just think it has to be, to me, I love that because I feel like it's a very healthy, missional way to say, like, be who you are and leverage that for the glory of God. Like, especially in a world and a culture where everything is about, like, be you, express yourself, whatever. It's like, yeah, your vision needs to flow out of who you are, not in a way that serves your end and your happiness and your glorification, but that's in line with God's mission, with the building of the church. And so, and I think if you think about it and you don't have that, or you haven't found one that you're excited by or whatever, then like maybe give that time and genuinely spend time, in prayer, spend time in the scriptures, like see where the Lord sparks your heart. Like the four of us sitting in this room get excited about different things, but all of those things fit under the larger umbrella of wanting to reach our city for the gospel. And so I think that's something that can be reassuring to people too, is that there's room within a church, and that gets easier, I think, the bigger you get too. So I think in the beginning we were probably a lot more laser focused and said no to a lot more things that maybe now we would say, oh, well, we have the resources to do X, Y, and Z over here, but we're still not going to do X, Y, and Z because it just doesn't fit up as part of our church's vision, And so I think you get more experienced at like filtering those things, but I think you have to embody it.
Yeah, we had a conversation just yesterday about some future stuff that just kind of on our minds. And the catalyst for the conversation or the theme was, what are unreached things in our city? Mm-hmm. Like that's what drove the conversation. Now it was opinions. We didn't have data in front of us, but it was just knowing the locals, our own experience here, what's available and what's not in terms of needs in the community, and us going, wow, our church could meet those two needs, and there's a vacuum there. And that could be, that's always what drives, right? There's always going to be something that drives us. It really has been the Great Commission and different areas of where the Great Commission can be played out, like in our city, in our community. But I just love the fact there's always been lostness and making disciples that has driven, what we do in our town, relationships, all those kind of things. I don't even remember the question, Alex. Ashley had a great answer, so I was just like kind of amening while she was talking.
Yeah, well, and I was going to say, I mean, how do you communicate your vision so that people can catch it, and then how do you know it's working?
Yeah, I think you have to talk about it a lot. You have to live it, like she said, like Ashley said, you have to live it. I mean, like you have to, right? I mean, so it's like if you're like personal trainer was like 350 pounds of not muscle, it's just kind of like, okay, it's just kind of weird, like if the person, I remember when I was in high school, the girl that they picked to be Governor Lawton Child's like student spokesperson for Quit Smoking, which is one of his initiatives. She smoked like at school. So like she was in charge of it. So she'd go like on TV and get to travel and like was on brochures and she smoked. Oh, that was the funniest thing.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, that was hilarious. But like you got to live it, I mean, like these pastors go up there and go, we're about the lost and we're about the Great Commission and we're about relationships and we're about this, and their life and family don't indicate that at all. Yeah. That's a problem, and I don't think God's going to bless that personally. I mean, I just think it's just, hypocritical might be too strong of a word. There's just no credibility there, And then I think that how it's working is I think when people start to live it themselves who are members of the church. Like when they just start to really see themselves as part of it. And a lot of it you're never going to really hear about because they're just going to be doing it. Mm-hmm. But it'll get back to you eventually. You'll see it in their lives. You'll see people making decisions based on these things. I think you'll see it in their giving. I think you'll see it in their involvement, but also to see it in their life outside of the walls of the church. You'll hear stories. So that because it's easy to go measurables or baptism. There's so many caveats to that. That's not a true measurable to me. That's important. We need to have goals for seeing people get baptized. I think the measurables are what's happening with people in their lives, their town, because people are giving a lot of time and energy to conversations and building relationships and answering questions and those kind of things. That to me is what I really work on. People get it.
That's good. Any final thoughts on the topic of embracing your church's vision before we head into the local on tap?
Yeah, I think people act like communicating vision in some sort of art form. I mean, I think there's people who maybe are more compelling doing it, but if our vision really is the Great Commission and how that plays out where we live, I mean, I think anyone should be able to do it. You might not cause 500 people to storm out the door with, ready to party and with swords in their hand, for the gospel. But at the same time, I'm just not very good at communicating vision. I'll hear pastors say that. It's like, what do you mean? So what do we do with what we believe? That's what you're talking about. What's the purpose of all this? What's the point of us all coming together? And so I just want to encourage pastors listening to this. You need to just you need to look at your own ministry and go, what am I leading people to do outside of just learning more stuff about the Bible? What am I leading them to do with it? And I think it's really important.
It's good. All right. Well, we just got done celebrating Easter and had a great weekend as a church. We were back at the Civic Center. We had a great Good Friday service at our building. And so we just wanted to take a moment to celebrate and reflect on that as we head into the local on tap. So what was your favorite moment from this past weekend with Easter and Good Friday and all that jazz?
I love our Good Friday service. I mean, just every year. And we're not at Ruby Diamond this year. Ruby Diamond's a really special place, neat place. But I was so thankful that for those that really worked hard to try to create some sort of similar Good Friday atmosphere as Ruby Diamond, and for people of our church that came, and showed out and filled that room. And it was a really special time of just really reflecting on Christ through the songs we sing through. And I appreciate that our church really gets us the difference between the 2 days. There's a difference between Good Friday and Easter. Obviously, we believe in those 2 days year round, but this the difference. Really, where Easter really is unapologetically vision-wise is a celebration of the resurrection, and Good Friday for us really is a somber reflection of Christ's work, including the Lord's Supper. So I think just the music is my favorite thing about those events. I love preaching at them. They're really a blessing to be able to preach at. I really feel the weight of the Good Friday sermon every year. That's shorter, and I always feel the weight of it, just the moment. But Easter Sunday sermon, I feel the weight of it. Don't get me wrong, because there's a lot of people there, but it's just fun for me. I mean, it really is just one big party when I get up there. I'm not even nervous when I get up there, But to answer the question, my favorite, it was, I think, how I was proven wrong in my head about people wanting to be a part of Easter and what it would be like. Because the Civic Center severely capped us, only allowed us to have 2,000 plus tickets, whatever it was. We normally have, significantly over 1,000 plus, more than that. Yeah. Some years even more than that, right? 1,500 more than that. So that's a lot of people difference in a building. So I was like, man, is it just not going to feel like Easter normally? Is it going to feel like it was a waste of money, a waste of time? Is it going to be like a womp womp and people walk in and see, were there a lot less people? Of course there were. It's COVID and there's the cap, but it felt like Easter at the Civic Center. And I know if you're listening to that, you're like, if you've never been before, you're like, what does that mean? I'm sorry, but you got to be a City Church person to get that. But it felt like Easter at the Civic Center. And so
it was vibing.
Yes. To actually answer the question, my favorite thing was, besides just me reflecting.
This is like a me answer.
I know. My favorite thing was how excited our people were for Easter at the Civic Center when they got there.
Yeah.
It was undeniable that our folks were pumped, and that fired me up. People were straight up fired up to be back. From volunteers, people walking in the door, the amount of can't wait texts I got and things I saw on Instagram, and it was just phenomenal. That was the best.
Great answer, Ashley.
Thank you for letting me reflect on Easter for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's so many. Specifically, Ain't No Grave opener at Easter was so fun. That was just awesome.
The goods.
That was just so good. I think similar to Dean, but just seeing, this isn't a moment, but just one takeaway from Easter is just seeing how much time people give over a span of, really a week, but especially over 3 days to serve and to make all that happen. I mean, you can't put on something of that scale, Good Friday to Easter, without hundreds of people who just literally give their whole weekend, and thinking about like staff spouses and families and just people who, spent probably collectively 30 hours over the course of the weekend or way more, more. And then we're going to get right back up on Monday and go to work and keep living their normal lives. And so I feel like that is when our church in one way is at our best, is just everybody really, pitching in together. And because we catch the vision, it's not like, oh, this cool Easter service or whatever. It's for something more. And so that's just always a favorite to me.
Yeah, I feel like this weekend is what we've talked about for the last hour. It's like our people embracing the vision and getting completely, on board. And I think we do it typically every year on Saturday after kind of like setup and team training. We all the volunteers rally on the plaza at the Civic Center, and we all stand in a circle and, spend time, praying together and just kind of thanking people for being there and encouraging them. And it's always awesome to look around, in that moment and just to see the people who, like you're saying, have given so much time, who have given so much energy, who have invited friends, invited family, who have, rearranged their weekend to be there to make it happen. And so I think that's kind of like one of my favorite moments of the weekend. One of my other favorite moments was when Dean walked out in a pink blazer.
Let's go.
So I appreciate your leadership, and it was a strong outfit.
Thank you very much. The golden calf that Ryan McCraw made, I still can't believe it. Just how good of a job he did with that thing. And I had never really seen it up close, like close. I'd seen it, but
right.
And when I got on stage and looked at it, I was like, this kind of creeps me out a little bit. It looks so real.
It had like eyes.
I'm like, is God going to strike lightning down on this thing? I know it's cliche to say like there's nothing like everybody says there's nothing like a football game, and like every school says that. There's nothing like a City Church Easter weekend.
No,
it's really something. I mean, just all that goes into it. And I think going off site, usually for Good Friday too, just builds that momentum. It's different than the rest of the year. It's not just that we meet granted, if we met at our building and just more people came, that'd be fun too. And most churches do, and it's wonderful for them. But just the whole offsite experience, that tradition every year is just great, and anytime I'm ever like, is it getting old? Is it kind of like, is it old hat? It proves me wrong every single time, I remember one time one of our elders said, as long as I'm an elder, we were going to have Easter at the Civic Center. And I was like, that's great. Rock on, so it's just neat.
Yeah. Great weekend for our church. Jacob, do you have a favorite moment?
I think for me, because I never got to actually experience like Easter at the Civic Center. I've always been serving in it.
Been in kids.
Yeah. This year, kind of getting to see all the behind the scenes stuff, and then all that kind of working together at that moment where the service starts and you're can take a deep breath and you're like, wow, all this coming together is a pretty cool thing. So.
And Jacob is not just saying this as someone who's sitting in a row. He's running production. So that needs to be made known to listeners.
I was just taking it all in. No, I was running the show.
Yeah.
He was flexing. He was flexing his golden calves, his literal calves. Yeah. So it was wonderful.
Oh, they're an idol for somebody. Anywho, we will wrap it up. We're excited to start next week, a couple weeks, Dean, as we talk about pop Christianity and your book coming out soon, Getting Over Yourself,
May 4th.
So we'll be spending a couple weeks talking about that topic, and we're excited for that. Hope you guys have a great week. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Local Dive, a podcast diving into the deep and shallow musings about Christ, the church, and culture. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow The Local Dive on social media and continue the conversation with us on Instagram and Twitter at The Local Dive Pod.